In the last few years, we've seen more and more enterprises adopt blockchain and Bitcoin technology, from Walmart to Starbucks, IBM, and Daimler. There's even an opportunity here they've spotted which may have yet to see. Up next, Shaylee Andifafi of Consensus will take us through the current state of enterprise blockchains, Jules Hilliard of Secure Block Tech, with Martino, Kadena, Todd Little of Oracle, Dan Donnie of Secure Currency, and Jordan Freed of Hedera Hashgraph.
I think we're on. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the panel on the state of enterprise blockchain. I am not going to introduce the panel members. They are going to introduce themselves along with response to the first question, because we have so much to talk about. So we are going to talk about what DeFi has to do with enterprise adoption of blockchain. Are they running in parallel? Is there a chicken and egg scenario? What are we seeing in the sector? And I guess I'll start with Dan Donnie.
Thanks, Shaylee. I appreciate it. And this is a great topic, and I'm feeling lucky to be on such a great panel with everybody else. I'm the CEO of Securrency. We're a blockchain-based financial logistics company. We specialize in tools, especially compliance tools that overlay or embed in DLT networks to enable automated compliance, among other things. And effectively, our strategy is what Red Hat has done for Linux in terms of making it enterprise adoptable. We do the same thing for blockchain solutions in the space with our middle tier. We're actually super excited about the DeFi movement, and we see these things moving in parallel. The key pieces, what DeFi is bringing, some of the back office functions that are traditionally held within banks are now being exposed, and they're very powerful tools that the banks make a lot of money off of, but that causes friction in the traditional system. By bringing them out in DeFi, in the DeFi world, you can lower costs associated with financial transactions. The one thing we'd say is missing from the DeFi space is a real sense for compliance. So we call it institutional DeFi. It's really layering over top of DeFi tools for lending, for automated market making, the policy components and the reporting components that are necessary to make sure that these tools remain compliant and safe. So we have some tools, for example, that we use. We've really pioneered CI/CD or DevSecOps with smart contracts. And so it allows you to release these smart contracts to do DeFi components without having big monolithic DeFi instruments. So we see these two things running in parallel, and we're excited about the growth in both spaces.
Great. Todd?
So I'm the chief architect for the Oracle blockchain platform. It's a managed blockchain as a service offering that's on our OCI Gen 2 cloud. And as well, we have an offering that's for on-premise customers. So we're based upon Hyperledger Fabric. And so we come at this from a sort of a consortium model and sort of enterprise applications. And the ones that we're seeing largely don't have a lot of DeFi interaction at the moment. I'm not sure why that is, but I can tell you that what we're seeing largely is a huge interest in things like logistics, which is sort of a very traditional blockchain application. But we're also seeing it in a number of other spaces, and those spaces are growing. But we're not seeing a lot on the financial space. Now, maybe that's because we're fabric based, so we're not seeing some of the kind of DeFi opportunities. But as I say, for our customer base, they've been extremely excited to be able to move ahead with our platform because we make it extremely easy for customers to develop and deploy their blockchain applications.
You will. Oh wait, we can't hear you.
No audio.
All right, try that again. Thanks for having me. I'm Martino, co-founder and CEO of Kadena. I got into crypto in a pretty strange way. I was at the Securities and Exchange Commission as an engineer, and Valerie formed the crypto working group, and I joined up when she founded it as basically the tech for the group. Left, went to JP Morgan, ended up on helping to found their blockchain center for excellence, built their first blockchain called Juno, which was eventually open sourced and presented to Hyperledger for adoption. And my co-founder there, we left and built Kadena about 5 years in now. And Kadena is a blockchain platform that is designed for both enterprise and public blockchain use. It is about democratizing all of the features that we knew we would need to see real enterprise adoption by the 2030, and bringing that to a public network that also has things like a beaconless sharded state public chain. So we actually have 20 chains braided together into a single network. Very cool. We're the only people to have a beaconless scaling solution. So all proof of work too. So you don't have to go to some new thing just to hopefully get scaling. We have it and we have proof of work. When it comes to DeFi, everything that the public sector does in crypto legitimizes the entire sector. Like any growth, any thing that you can really show. Even if it's kind of weird, and even if if the regulators come down eventually, which I kind of think they're going to do with a lot of the yield tokens that we're seeing right now. Nonetheless, that shows interest and shows new concepts and does help with the conversation when you're going for enterprise adoption. I am personally a big believer that the public side of blockchain is crucial, and you need to get traction there and push that for enterprise to exist. I think enterprise should exist, but until we have really good use case on the public side, it's a little bit hard. So is it a chicken and egg? I don't know. I think that DeFi or some notion of this concept needs to be functional and in production to really aid in that second kick that we're going to need to get enterprises going and getting onto blockchain technology.
Awesome. Jordan?
Hey everyone. So I'm happy to be here live from my guest bedroom at home. I also, like Will, came to crypto in a really roundabout way. I was running a VPN company, a virtual private network over in Budapest, Hungary, called Buffered VPN. And the timing was interesting. It was 2013, and all of our customers said, hey, we don't want to pay for this with a Visa MasterCard. We want to use something called Bitcoin. And we were one of the earlier web applications back in 2013 to start taking Bitcoin in our checkout flow, partnered with BitPay, of course. And that kind of led me down the rabbit hole. When we were acquired in 2017, I got into the space full time at Hedera Hashgraph, where I lead up business development today. We've built a deployed enterprise grade public network. What that means is we've solved for performance and security with the Hashgraph algorithm. And we've married that with a governance model where we're governed by some multi-billion-dollar multinational companies like Google, IBM, Boeing, Deutsche Telekom, Tata, and all of that. So we brought some really cool enterprises to the space. I think this question is a really interesting one. What is the intersection of DeFi and enterprise? And the way I think about it is, software was always going to eat the world, if we all agree on that hypothesis. What we're seeing with cryptocurrency is software is eating money. And I think that DeFi, we can kind of summarize as, the software is clearly disrupting financial services. We've got the ability to program things like escrow contracts or things like dividend agreements. And we've got this programmability within these tokens. I actually see this as cryptocurrency. We can't beat around the bush. I mean, it's in the word, it's currency. Currency is money. And we're seeing, whether we like it or not, DeFi is a really cool use for that money. And I think that's good for the cryptocurrency space in general. The more utility this money has, the more people that will hold it, the more people that hold it, the more users we get on that network, and the more enterprises will attract to the space. I'll give you a practical example. If there were 100 million PayPal users that held $0 balances in their PayPal accounts, PayPal never would have become a de facto payment method online. But DeFi is, because it's an interesting use of currency, is attracting a lot of users, holding value. And it is, I think, going to make it interesting for enterprises to start to build applications to capture some of that value that is being held by those users. So I think that's where we're going with it.
Great. Jules?
Thank you. Yeah, hello, my name is Jules Hilliard. I'm the CEO of Secure Block Tech. We have built the first of its kind enterprise-grade BOC, or Blockchain Operations Center. A single pane of glass, if you will, to develop, deploy, and manage all of your blockchains and dApps from one centralized management console. Monitoring, analytics, security, and optimization are at the core of our technology stack. We consider ourselves the third leg of the stool. If you think network infrastructure, think NOC, SOC, BOC. The adoption question is one that we've been trying to solve from the beginning. I'd like to take a little twist on this and talk about the adoption of new technology by the enterprise as they face similar hurdles, and blockchain is no exception. As most of you already know, DeFi is only one of the many industries for blockchain, and I believe that's what gets everyone excited. For those of you career technologists, however, we have seen many great technologies with game-changing functionality come and go. So what are the key factors that decide which new technologies, such as blockchain, get adopted and which technologies don't? A few of them, demand. There has to be a demand for the consumer marketplace, and I think we're all seeing that. Use cases, does the technology solve a problem? Does the incurring the cost of integration benefit the company, cost versus ROI? And tools, and I think that's where a lot of us come in here, have the needed development and management tools been created to successfully onboard and operate the new technology? Because no matter how good the tech is, if you can't drive it, you're not going to use it. I think it's good news though for blockchain. It appears that the consumer demand for DeFi is growing, which will stimulate the need for businesses to adopt. In addition, we're seeing all the green lights for blockchain technology to play a significant role in the future development of network and application architecture across the spectrum. We believe it's not all or nothing after all, like most technology adoptions. There will be a convergence.
Thank you, Jules. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Shaylee Adinolfi with Consensus. I work on business development, mainly in finance, banking, payments, but I do spend a lot of time with public sector globally, the US government and other governments, and doing a lot of work on central bank digital currencies these days. So I spend most of my time on the enterprise side, but have started to spend some more time with the DeFi side. And I think there is more interest from the institutional players in what's happening in DeFi. And with that interest is coming the investment. Also, people want returns, right? They're willing to take more risks. We're in a challenging market post-COVID, so we're seeing kind of this. I would say it's a little bit of the chicken and egg situation happening, but some challenges do have to be worked out, including governance. So my second question for the panel is around what's happening with the governance on the public and permission sides from where you're sitting. What are interesting models? What are some of the challenges you're facing and the industry is facing that we need to work out together? So I will start with Todd because I know you had some interesting things to say about the consortium.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so we're a permission, private blockchain. I hate to use the term private, but that seems to be commonly used. Offering, and so our customers are largely large enterprises. So they have to apply know your customer laws and money laundering laws, all this kind of stuff. And one of the big issues is that we're trying to get organizations to work together who may not have worked together through any kind of formal mechanism, or maybe they're in adversarial relationships. So how do you get these potentially adversaries to work together and to form a network that's going to be beneficial to both of them? So what we're seeing is that at the organizational level, so how do you form a consortia is one of the big problems. One of the things we're working on and focusing on is how can we govern the blockchain network in that kind of a model where the governance is performed on chain. So decisions that are made are recorded on chain. All that sort of stuff is not something that's present right now. It's all done largely through out-of-band communication, and we believe that that needs to happen on chain so everybody knows what decisions were made, how they were made, who participated in those decisions. And that's really what governance is about, right? Making policies and ensuring those policies are adhered to.
Yeah, Will, you had some interesting things to say last time we spoke about what's happening in DeFi around governance and the tokens. And
yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about governance tokens right now on the public DeFi space, and it's really more of a code word for just someone puts out a contract, there's some admin keys, and then the governance token is really just kind of like swapping the word airdrop for it. Governance is crucial for DeFi. Governance is also crucial for consortium and enterprise adoption. But the thing that we need especially on the public side, is real decentralization. And the only way you get there is real decentralized governance. And it's pretty hard to see how we get there with the current DeFi ecosystem, at least the technology substrate, of how do you actually go and model that on a public chain where the gas costs can be so astronomical that a single vote for something could be to the tune of hundreds of thousands of bucks. I think that there was a bug in a contract and people tried to, we're like, hey, let's go and upgrade it and fix it. And then people didn't actually vote because it was going to be like $1,000 a vote. So, what we need is something a much more powerful substrate. And part of Kadena's platform, because of our heritage coming out of enterprise at JP Morgan and then going into public, is that we have this smart contract language called PACT. And it was designed initially for enterprise use cases, which include consortiums with completely crazy and incredibly nuanced and detailed governance mechanisms, because that's one of the things that people fight over for like 2 years before they decide that they don't actually want to do the POC anymore, sadly. But like, this is a big thing you try to get over. The coolest approach I've seen on the enterprise side, actually, was when we were working with Blend on a use case called FinPrint, and it was for it was kind of like a decentralized network for something closer to like Equifax. They ended up not going with it; they didn't think the market timing was right. But the approach for the consortium model there was actually that the governance was going to be on the public network, and people could buy in, and then you'd be whitelisting and basically staking on a contract on the public network, and then using that information for the private network. So that instead of having a consortium model where everyone gets in a room and just argues until they're blue in the face, you can actually say, it's like, no, put your money where your mouth is. Like, go here, like, go get coins, and then go buy in if you want to actually do this. And then the thing isn't controlled by anyone. And this seems to be a really interesting approach that I don't think we're seeing much right now, just because enterprise is, surprisingly taking a little while. But it's, the crucial thing for DeFi to move forward is governance. And like, if you're asking yourself, hey, is it decentralized? Like, how do we have decentralized governance? What does that mean? The answer is, if the regulators want to come after you, like, is it just 2 people with keys? That's what a lot of it is now. What you really want is something closer to proof of work, where it's thousands. Like, our network is run by thousands of miners, and we don't even know who 95% of them are. I don't even know who I would go to. We have a decentralized community, and that comes with risk. If you have to do a software upgrade, it's hard. And if the community doesn't like what you're doing, they can do other things. But on the same side, it also means you have real decentralization. And that's the interesting thing, especially for enterprises, because the business model, a decentralized business model, is just new. And we don't know how strong it's going to be, but I'm a big believer in it.
I don't know. It's been tough. It's been really, it's been hard. I agree with you. There's hope. We're all here with the decentralized hope, but it's tough to get that in. I would love to hear Jordan's views from Hedera, how you all have dealt with this.
Yeah, it's funny. We started with a book we read. I've seen people on social media share it recently. It was D-Hawk. D-Hawk was the founder of Bank Americard, now known today popularly as the Visa network. And he kind of struggled with the same set of problems in the 60s when they were trying to solve problems in the payment card industry. And it was, how do we get a bunch of these competing institutions together to set standards and establish basically this, you can think of it like a globally distributed payments network on top of which they would settle payments. And he came up with this whole idea of a chaotic organization, chaos plus order. He invented a word, chaotic. And we were very inspired by a lot of his thought leadership in that. And that's where we came up with the Hashgraph governing body, the Hedera Hashgraph governing council. Our answer to that, I totally agree with Will's comments and some of the other panelists' comments. I think that what's been stopping enterprise adoption has been serious governance. And truly decentralized governance of some of these networks. A lot of networks are really nailing decentralization of the platforms themselves, but are, I think, falling short when it comes to addressing continuity plans for how these networks will operate. Who defines product roadmap? Who defines software upgrades? Do we have the legal controls and technical controls required to keep these platforms stable, especially if we want to attract these really valuable tokenization ecosystems? So our model is, was very D-Hawk inspired, but we have these governing council members. They serve 2 consecutive 3-year terms on our governing body. We have a membership committee that is also filled by these companies. They defined objective standards, and then we recruit companies based on the criteria that the membership committee sets. Members can vote each other out. They can vote new members in. If members aren't in compliance or not running their infrastructure or not updating their software, they can be penalized in sort of a proper fashion. So, and there's only 39 companies in sort of our definition of how we govern it. So, in that regard, that's how we've done it. Our differentiator is we offer this consensus service. And the thinking is if this thing is going to get integrated into these private blockchain platforms, Todd mentioned Hyperledger Fabric and the Oracle Managed Blockchain Service. What Hashgraph, what we have done is we have this governed consensus service that we integrate into those platforms. And similarly, it could be integrated into, a quorum implementation or an R3 Core implementation. And we've really seen that as the answer. When you have governed consensus, it sort of makes the ease of spinning a new blockchain up. You don't have to necessarily build the consortia first. You can kind of just build a platform and then have a really well-governed consensus that you're tapping into.
Interesting. So standards, and then, I mean, it does sound like a complex but well-working governance structure, but it does also sound a little centralized, right? So Dan, do you have any thoughts on that? The governance on decentralized and then permission models?
Yeah, so we actually see a range of this across our portfolio. So for example, I like the word chaotic. Jordan, that's pretty cool. Another equivalent word is confederated. So that is with, it's a group of folks who have expressed authority, but there's no necessarily a central party. We've developed a confederated model for governance in some settings. An example of this would be the InterVASP working group for the exchange of travel rule data between parties. To be a VASP, one must be a part of that group. Broker-dealer rules work the same way with FINRA. The question is, who gets to establish that one has the right to, for example, KYC a party? And it works in a confederated model that we have seen. Now, most actions, enterprise really means governance within a boundary. And so we see for companies, like for example, governance really is, how does one get the right to express authority? And within a company, if I'm an institutional trader for JP Morgan, for example, I get my authority to execute transactions with the value that JP Morgan owns based on an assignment that I have within JP Morgan. I can't, if I leave JP Morgan, I don't take that authority with me. So in fact, that enterprise corporate structure that you see, which gives me the authority, is something that also needs to be expressed within the blockchain. When you do fund management, you're accountable to parties. The fund manager is designated or delegated that authority. Typically, that's not a person, it's an entity. And you need to be able to track one's right to act on behalf of the entity. So we have tools there. And then finally, there's business processes. So typically, when one does a significant action on behalf of one's enterprise, there's actually a sequence of sign-offs or other parties. So we have a decentralized workflow component. So a decentralized hierarchical model, a confederated model, and then just flat out DAO-based governance models where shareholders get to vote. All of those are necessary to really do DeFi at scale.
Jules, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Absolutely, a lot of great information here, and maybe step back a little bit for some of the audience members, as it comes to compliance, regulations, and governance, we all know this is a very complicated piece of the equation, and it's pivotal for the successful adoption of DeFi by the enterprise. I think it needs to be said, though, that I think many listening would like to see blockchain utilized to disrupt the current financial industry, but that's a whole nother panel. That being said, I think if we were to take a quick peek into the past evolutionary cycle of governance, we know that it moves many cycles behind the analytics and intelligence needed to make smart, fair, and most importantly, legal decisions. And although we don't have the answers on this complicated and fast-moving piece of the puzzle yet, I would like to influence those in the audience that are pursuing IT law. I would highly recommend you consider blockchain governance as an option and help us push this new technology towards mass adoption.
Awesome. So we have 6 minutes left. So each of you, approximately 30 seconds to 1 minute. Tell me what you think the future of enterprise blockchain adoption is, and try to, and if possible, use a use case, include a use case in there. So I will start with Jules, actually.
All right, great. I think perception plays a role here. I think we've all been battling that as a group, and I think we know what we're battling. As a team, and I think as a group of technologists, we've never viewed blockchain as an all or nothing piece of technology. But to this day, it seems that many C-level executives and C-level technologists still have that impression. I think we need to fix this misconception with the decision makers, encourage the enterprise to get a dev team working in their sandboxes on ways to enhance or augment their current applications and architecture utilizing blockchain. For example, there are fingers of different pieces of currently utilized applications like ERPs, accounting, supply chain, file sharing, and the list goes on and on. They could greatly benefit from blockchain. Looking at this event, this panel, the audience, and the many great companies and teams that are committed to this process, it appears that blockchain is here to stay. And the exciting future that blockchain will play in the future of technology as we know it is just getting started. So thanks for having me.
Where's Jordan?
Yeah, I think the future of enterprise adoption is, today for those of us that have been in the space for a while, a number like $15 billion in circulating supply of something like USDT is somewhat exciting, and we sort of celebrate that. I expect that in the relatively near term, you'll have very large, very reputable sort of the payment and financial service incumbents, some of the banks issue stable coins that very quickly will dwarf some of what we have in the market today. I think that will serve as probably one of the bigger fiat to crypto, our ecosystem on-ramps, and bring much more adoption to these networks. That is definitely going to stress test a lot of the infrastructure that we have in place today. And I expect a lot more token bridges between some of these networks to facilitate value exchange, and a lot more people building substrates to kind of dictate interoperability between these networks. And again, how that value gets transacted. I'm very bullish long term. I think it's still so early. So those listening that are not yet full-time in the space, I think, now is a great time, especially in this new post-COVID world of ours, to really get involved. And shameless plug, we're definitely hiring here at Hedera.
Well,
Yeah, thanks for having me too. Future of enterprise blockchain in a couple words. I think the next, a couple of years is going to be pretty slow, and then it's going to pick up. I don't know if a lot of people know, Bitcoin back in the day after it launched, people tried to apply it to enterprise and had a very hard time getting adoption. And then kind of round two of enterprise adoption was Ethereum, showed a huge amount of potential, but the technology stacks that are just arriving now, I think that took the last, all the lessons from Ethereum needed to exist for real enterprise adoption to really move. And the way that it's going to happen, the way you're going to know it's happening quickly, is that you're going to see enterprises onboarding onto public chains or bridging onto them of some way. It's going to involve the public side. If you don't see enterprises on a public chain where they don't have to worry about gas costs going through the roof, then you're going to enterprise adoption just isn't quite happening yet.
thank you. That's great. Todd?
Yeah, I think that the future is largely in much broader acceptance and usage. So, some of the ones that have been mentioned are ERP, supply chain. We're seeing it in public services. We're seeing it in the public sector. We're seeing it as the medical industry. So for sharing medical health records, all this sort of information. So I see largely just people coming up with newer ideas about how do we apply some of this. I think one of the things I see in the enterprise world is that they're not so focused on sort of the monetization, and so needing to have a currency built into your underlying platform isn't necessarily a value to them. So, and as well, who do you share this information with? So we're permissioned blockchains, and so the public world is a little bit foreign in some regards. I see some interoperability work that can be done there, and I see also interoperability work being done between the various enterprise blockchains as being critical.
Yeah. Dan?
We're working on tokenized exchange traded funds with an institutional partner, Wisdom Tree. And this is really where you see the enterprise intersecting with the broader blockchain concepts. We're working to make these on public networks, on mainnet. And so the key pieces of how you govern back-end activities, back office functions, but also allow shareholders to have a voice in these tokens are central. So we're excited about that. It's really, as Jordan said, the beginning of institutional value, really with high grade investment opportunities coming to investors in the space that are highly liquid, easy to trade, available on the New York Stock Exchange or in your crypto wallet.
Yeah, you've got, so thank you all so much for your time. I totally agree. We're seeing some interesting models. I mainly spend my time in the Ethereum ecosystem, and we do have to figure out throughput, gas. I think there's some things with governance, privacy, that balance between privacy and transparency will be figured out in different models as we go forward, depending on the use case. And I am looking forward to the next few years. It's moving so quickly, and there's never a dull moment. So I hope to be working with all of you in some form or fashion in the near future. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Shaylee.
You as well.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Shaylee.
Shaylee.
Yep.
So yeah.
Right.